Saturn is beautiful, maybe the most beautiful object in the solar system. A planet wrapped in rings so massive, they could stretch from Earth to the moon nearly 3 times over. For centuries, humans stared at those rings in confusion. Galileo thought they were moons. Others thought they were giant handles attached to the planet. Nobody understood what they actually were. And honestly, we still might not. Because in the last 2 decades, NASA's Cassini mission sent back data that quietly disturbed planetary scientists around the world. Saturn's rings are disappearing. A perfect hexagon larger than Earth spins endlessly at its north pole. If you saw Saturn from space with your own eyes, it would probably feel unreal. The planet is enormous. You could fit more than 760 Earths inside it. Its atmosphere glows gold beneath sunlight. Its rings shine like floating blades of ice suspended in darkness. And despite its size, Saturn is strangely light. In fact, Saturn is the only planet in the solar system less dense than water. If you somehow found an ocean large enough, Saturn would float. But beneath that beauty is a world completely hostile to human understanding. Winds on Saturn can reach nearly 1 to 800 kilometers per hour. Storms larger than Earth erupt deep within its atmosphere. Its pressure becomes so extreme that hydrogen, the most common element in the universe, begins behaving like liquid metal. And surrounding all of it are the rings, the most famous planetary rings ever discovered. For centuries, astronomers believed they were ancient, older than humanity, older than Earth itself. But Cassini revealed something shocking. The rings may actually be young, unbelievably young, possibly younger than the dinosaurs. And worse, they're dying. Thousands of kilograms of ice particles and dust are being ripped away from the rings and dragged into Saturn's atmosphere forever. Scientists call it ring rain, and at first it didn't seem important, until they calculated the numbers. Roughly 10,000 kilograms of material vanish every second. That's enough to fill an Olympic swimming pool in less than an hour. The rings are literally evaporating into the planet below. And according to current estimates, they may only have around 100 million years left. Now, in human terms, 100 million years sounds massive. Saturn itself is over 4 billion years old, meaning the rings may exist for only a tiny fraction of the planet's lifetime. And that creates a disturbing coincidence. Humanity appeared at exactly the moment Saturn wears its rings. Think about that. Out of billions of years, we arrived during the tiny window where the solar system's most beautiful structure is visible. What are the odds? Seriously, because some astronomers think those odds are unbelievably low. Too low. And that idea connects to something much bigger. The rare Earth hypothesis. The possibility that intelligent observers in the universe are extraordinarily uncommon. That maybe consciousness itself only appears during incredibly narrow windows of cosmic stability. In other words, maybe we are not witnessing Saturn at a random moment. Maybe this is one of the only moments anyone ever could. And then things got stranger. Because the rings themselves don't behave like dead objects. They move, shift, oscillate. They form waves and structures across thousands of kilometers, almost like a living system, and hidden within them. NASA found something even more unsettling. Tiny moons orbiting directly inside the ring gaps. Moons with names like Prometheus and Pandora. But these moons don't just orbit Saturn, they control the rings. Using gravity, they constantly herd ring particles into sharp boundaries. Without them, some rings would collapse in only a few years, which means Saturn's rings are not stable. They require constant maintenance, constant correction, almost like an enormous cosmic machine continuously adjusting itself. And then Cassini detected organic compounds falling from the rings into Saturn's atmosphere. Not just ice, carbon, nitrogen, the building blocks of life itself, falling endlessly from structures we still don't fully understand. But the rings were only the beginning. Because above Saturn's North Pole, there is something that should not exist. NASA first noticed it decades ago. At Saturn's North Pole, there is a giant hexagon, a perfect 6-sided structure embedded in the atmosphere. And when scientists first saw it, they assumed it would disappear. Storms change shape all the time. Planetary atmospheres are chaotic. Nothing that large should remain stable. Except it did. Year after year, the hexagon stayed. Decade after decade, it remained nearly unchanged. And the scale is difficult to comprehend. The hexagon is roughly 25,000 kilometers across, bigger than Earth itself. Imagine standing on Earth and looking up to see a geometric storm system larger than the entire planet. Now, to be clear, nature does create hexagons. Snowflakes, crystal formations, beehives. But not like this. Not a perfectly stable atmospheric structure rotating around a gas giant for decades. Scientists attempted to recreate it in laboratory experiments using spinning fluids. And technically, they managed to produce something similar, but only under tightly controlled conditions. And Saturn is not a laboratory. Saturn is an enormous turbulent gas giant, with winds moving faster than hurricanes on Earth. The math gets uncomfortable fast, because even now, nobody fully understands why the hexagon is so stable, or why it exists at all. And this is where some theories begin crossing into uncomfortable territory. Not mainstream science, not confirmed fact, but strange enough that people keep talking about it quietly. Some researchers notice the geometry resembles standing wave interference patterns, the same kind of patterns created when energy stabilizes into repeating frequencies. In simple terms, the hexagon behaves less like a random storm, and more like a structured resonance, like a signal frozen into matter. Now I am not saying Saturn is transmitting something. There is no evidence for that. But I am saying this. The deeper scientists looked into Saturn, the stranger the patterns became, and then Cassini made its final approach. In 1997, NASA launched Cassini, a spacecraft worth over $3 billion. Its mission was simple: go to Saturn and uncover its secrets. What nobody expected was how strange those secrets would become. Cassini spent 13 years orbiting Saturn. It studied the rings, the moons, the storms, the atmosphere. And in 2017, NASA made a decision that shocked people around the world. They chose to destroy it, deliberately. The mission was called the Grand Finale. Cassini would perform 22 final dives between Saturn and its rings, before plunging directly into the planet itself. And NASA claimed the reason was planetary protection. Some of Saturn's moons, especially Enceladus and Titan, might contain conditions suitable for life. If Cassini accidentally crashed into one of them later, it could contaminate those worlds forever. So NASA killed the spacecraft before that could happen. But what Cassini discovered during those final dives raised new questions entirely. The region between Saturn and the rings was almost empty, far emptier than models predicted. Scientists expected dangerous debris, dense particle fields, chaos. Instead, Cassini passed through with surprising ease. And then came the magnetic field problem. A planet's magnetic field normally tilts slightly away from its rotational axis. Earth's does. Jupiter's does. Almost every major planetary body does. But Saturn's magnetic field appeared almost perfectly aligned. And that is deeply strange, because magnetic fields are generated by a planet's interior. If Saturn's field is perfectly symmetrical, our models can't properly interpret what's happening beneath the atmosphere. It effectively blinds us, like Saturn's interior is hidden behind physics we still don't understand. One scientist described it as deeply frustrating. Another called it almost impossible. And the more data Cassini sent back, the less certain researchers became about what Saturn actually is. Then the transmission stopped. Cassini entered Saturn's atmosphere. The pressure increased. The spacecraft began overheating. And after traveling billions of kilometers, after 20 years in space, NASA lost contact forever. The final signal vanished into Saturn. And some scientists quietly admitted something unsettling afterward. Cassini answered many questions. But Saturn created even more. Maybe there's a simple explanation for everything. Maybe the rings are temporary. Maybe the hexagon is just unusual fluid dynamics. Maybe Saturn's magnetic field only appears strange because our models are incomplete. That's possible, but Saturn keeps forcing scientists into the same uncomfortable position again and again. The deeper we look, the less certain we become. Its rings are vanishing. A geometric storm larger than Earth still spins above its north pole like a mathematical scar carved into the atmosphere. And the most sophisticated spacecraft we ever sent there was destroyed before we could fully understand what it found. Maybe Saturn is just another planet. Or maybe it's reminding us of something much bigger. That the universe is still full of things we cannot explain. Things older than humanity, stranger than our models, and possibly far more complex than we are prepared to understand. Because sometimes the scariest thing in space is not what we find. It's realizing how little we actually know. I'll see you in the next one.